Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're diving into something that, feels particularly relevant, I think, these days. It's that pull of tradition in this very modern, often kind of chaotic world. And I have to say, as I was reading through the writing you all sent over, a really thoughtful piece from someone clearly wrestling with this very idea. I felt that myself, that yearning, that
Mhm.
yearning for something deeper, something more rooted. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that search for meaning, it's something that, well, unites us all, right? And this piece you share, this one is interesting. This source brings a fascinating perspective. They identify as, get this, a postmodern traditionalist.
Now, how's that for a paradox,
It
right?
really is.
It's like saying, yeah, I'm a tech-loving Luddite. So for all of you listening, for you who are, well, exploring this kind of tension between tradition and modernity, this piece you've shared, it's our jumping off point.
Exactly, exactly. So let's unpack that a little. What is this author trying to say about finding tradition, finding meaning in a world that often feels like, well, it's leaving those ideas behind. And
Yeah.
then we can sort of explore why this even matters, right?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things.
Okay, sounds like a plan. So right off the bat, the author, they dive headfirst into this whole postmodern traditionalist label. They even mention another thinker, academic agent, who also identifies this way. It's like they're claiming a label that on the surface feels, I don't know, completely at odds, right?
Yeah. It's a powerful image, though, isn't it? And it speaks to this tension so many of us feel today. We think about postmodernism. It's all about questioning, deconstructing norms, right? Embracing individuality.
Yeah.
Yet here we have this yearning for something solid, something that connects back to the past.
It's like standing on a mountain of disassembled Lego blocks looking for the instruction manual.
Exactly.
Right.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The author suggests that maybe, just maybe, postmodernism, by clearing away all those old assumptions, actually makes space for tradition to kind of reappear.
Okay.
It's almost like it had to be broken down to be rebuilt.
Okay, now that's an aha moment right there. So instead of being opposites, they're seeing these two forces as potentially like complementary.
Precisely. It's not about going back. It's not about going back to some, idealized past,
Hmm.
but rather about recognizing the enduring value of tradition in a new light.
And the author seems to grapple with this in a really deeply personal way, wouldn't you say? They call themselves a traditionalist, but then there's this confession, right? They're more like, as they put it, a striving traditionalist, someone building their own tradition from scratch.
It's almost like they admire the craftsmanship of a vintage watch,
Mm.
but they're trying to build their own from spare parts. They even use the word reconstruction, which I find so telling.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. It really speaks volumes about their internal struggle, right? That they're drawn to this idea of inherited tradition, but also aware that they're approaching it from a different starting point.
yes, and this is where that sense of being an outsider comes into play. Wouldn't you say? They talk about displaying, flags and objects that represent certain values, but then they acknowledge having to explain them, almost like they're curating a museum exhibit of a
Yeah.
culture they weren't born into.
It's like a museum curator yearning to truly belong to the world that they're showcasing. Now that's a compelling image, but it seems like this longing for authenticity, it runs deeper than just aesthetics. What do you make of that?
It's the difference between, inheriting a language and learning it later in life. You can become fluent, even eloquent, but there's a certain, I don't know, a certain inherent understanding that comes with being born into it.
Hmm.
And the author seems to feel that absence quite keenly.
And it's not just language, is it? The author, they even go so far as to compare themselves to figures like Julius Evola. Talk about a fascinating character, right? An aristocrat who embodied a certain, I don't know, traditionalist perspective, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, yeah. The author mentions Evola being, and I quote here, an aristocrat of the soul, which I have to say has a certain, I don't know, has a ring to it, right? But they also seem to be kind of grappling with this idea that true aristocracy, at least in the traditional sense, it goes beyond, just adopting a certain set of beliefs or aesthetics.
It's more than just a vibe.
Exactly, exactly. It's about lineage. It's about a lived experience that's passed down through generations. It's about, well, it's about inhabiting a tradition, not just, admiring it from afar.
Which is something they clearly long for, right? But they feel they lack, despite their deep appreciation for it.
Yes, and there's almost a sense of mourning there, wouldn't you say? A mourning for the loss of something they never actually had.
It's like they're grieving a birthright they were never entitled to, but desperately wish they had inherited.
And this sense of loss, I mean, it speaks to a much broader trend that we see in society today.
Right.
The author describes a world where family heirlooms are readily discarded, where money is more valuable than lineage or history, to quote them
Yeah.
directly. And it's a poignant observation, really, on how tradition has become so fragmented, in our modern age.
It's like we're encouraged to declutter our physical spaces, right? But what about that sense of historical clutter, that connection to something bigger than ourselves? It feels like that's it's being swept aside as well.
It's a trade-off, isn't it? The freedom, the mobility of modern life, often comes at the expense of rootedness, of continuity.
And yet, even amidst this fragmentation, this sense of loss, the author describes this almost desperate need, this need to create something new that feels old, something authentic in a world saturated with artificiality.
Precisely, precisely. They talk about being compelled to establish their own traditions,
Yeah,
based upon, and I quote, my own values and beliefs.
yeah.
And while they acknowledge that these might be, again, I'm quoting here, inauthentic, they also recognize that they're needful.
Needful. That's such a powerful word choice. It suggests, I don't know, a sense of urgency, a void that must be filled. What is it about tradition, do you think? What is it about tradition that speaks to this deep human need?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? I think it boils down to a few fundamental human desires. First, there's the need for belonging, right? The need for a sense of connection to something larger than ourselves, whether that's family or community or a shared history.
It's that feeling of being part of something that transcends our individual lives, right? Something that gives us a sense of place, of purpose.
Exactly. And tradition provides a framework, for understanding our place in the world. It offers a set of values and practices that have stood the test of time, a sense of continuity, a link to the past, and a guide for the future.
So it's not just about, nostalgia or clinging to the past, but about finding meaning, finding purpose in a world that can often feel, meaningless and chaotic.
Precisely. It's about seeking wisdom in the accumulated experience of generations past.
Yeah.
About recognizing that we're part of a story, a story that began long before us, and will continue long after we're gone.
And you know what I find so fascinating? This author, they're not like advocating for a complete rejection of modernity, are they? They even see some positives in postmodernism. It's like they're trying to find that, that middle ground, that way to reconcile these seemingly like opposing forces.
Yes. They suggest that by, and I'm quoting here, clearing away old assumptions,
Yeah.
postmodernism, it could actually pave the way for tradition to reemerge, but in a new way,
Yeah.
in a more, I don't know, a more relevant form. It's almost like they're saying, okay, we've deconstructed everything. Now let's rebuild, but with intention this time, with purpose.
I love that. So it's not about, being stuck in the past, but about taking the best of what tradition, what tradition offers, and finding ways to make it meaningful, it meaningful now in the present.
Exactly. And I think what makes this author's perspective so compelling is their honesty.
Right.
They admit to feeling like an outsider, an imposter even in their pursuit of tradition.
It is refreshing, isn't it? They're not, I don't know, they're not coming from a place of like authority, but from a place of genuine like seeking, which I think makes their journey so relatable. At least for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that very outsiderness, it gives them a unique perspective when you say, I mean, they can see both the allure of tradition,
Yeah.
but also the very real challenges of embracing it in a world where those, those traditional structures have, well, they've crumbled.
They're like a bridge between two worlds, between those who long for that sense of tradition but struggle to find it, and those who were raised with it,
Yeah.
but might not fully grasp its significance in today's world. It's really something.
Precisely. It's like they're saying, hey, I'm figuring this out too, right? Let's share our stories, share our struggles, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a way forward together.
And that's what makes this whole deep dive so, I don't know, thought provoking, right? It's not about providing the easy answers, but about
Yeah.
asking the right questions. What does it even mean to be, authentically traditional? In this day and age, in our globalized digital age, can we consciously create traditions that hold the same, I don't know, the same weight as inherited ones?
These are questions I think, well, I think we all must grapple with
Oh.
individually. There's no one size fits all answer, but what this deep dive, I think, reminds us is that longing for tradition, for belonging, for meaning. Well, that's something universal, right? It's woven into the very fabric of who we are as human beings.
And perhaps by exploring that yearning together, by
Yeah.
having these conversations, well, maybe we can start to build a future that feels both, I don't know, both grounded
Yeah.
and expansive, connected to the wisdom of the past, yet
Yeah.
yet open to the possibilities of the future.
A future where tradition in all its messy complexity can continue to nourish us, to connect us,
Yeah.
and to guide us forward.
What a powerful thought to leave you with. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the ideas that matter.